Alex, what shutter speed should I use on my DSLR to get a film look? To understand a film look, you have to understand a film camera. Fortunately, I have a modest example here. This is a Krasnogorsk 16mm wind-up film camera of Soviet manufacture. Let's take the lens off here so you can see the shutter. The shutter is this little guy in there spinning around. What you're seeing is the mirrored portion of the shutter as it comes to rest after each frame. What happens when it's running is that the mechanism moves a frame of film into position behind it, allows light to hit the film, and then continues turning, closing the shutter as the next frame of film moves into position. Now, that's important to understand because what it means is that half the time the shutter is open, exposing film, and half the time the shutter is closed, advancing film into position. This is critical because what that means is that your shutter speed, the amount of time each image is exposed to light, is half your frame rate, which is how many images are exposed per second. So, if you were shooting at the cinematic standard of 24 frames per second, your shutter speed would be half that, 1/48th per second. So the short answer to your question is, if you want to simulate the de facto standard shutter speed for narrative filmmaking, you would use 1/48th of a second. But you should understand that the reason that is the standard is because of the shutter in a film camera being open half the time and closed half the time. Now, to make things a little more complicated, let me mention that I'm actually cheating here. While the standard film shutter is 180 degrees, half a circle, the Soviets made this shutter at a smaller angle so that each frame of film is exposed for less than half the frame rate. Now, that gets confusing pretty fast, but you should understand that that's what you're doing if you set the shutter speed on your DSLR to a less than half your frame rate shutter speed. Now, that's not necessarily bad, but it is an aesthetic decision and you should be aware of it. So, bottom line, the traditional standard for narrative filmmaking, meaning movies and episodic television, is a frame rate of 24 frames per second. The standard shutter angle is 180 degrees, which means that the standard shutter speed is 1/48th of a second. So if you want to do narrative filmmaking with your DSLR and stay faithful to what a film camera does, you want to stay close to that 1/48th shutter speed as well. But keep that half your frame rate shutter speed formula in your mind, because if you start shooting at significantly higher frame rates, you're going to want to adjust your shutter speed accordingly. I hope this has been helpful. I know it can be a little confusing. If you want to see more videos, visit 5dfilmmaking.com. And if you have a question for me, send it to the address on your screen. See you next time.